LGBT activists are now fighting to put male murderers in women's prisons. But we're the crazy bigots, I guess. We gotta check in on the ACLU and the alphabet people over in Washington State because they're not okay. Like, I'm not sure what's going on, what's in the water over there, but they are unwell. First, I'm going to read you the side of this story from the ACLU, and then I'll let you in on a couple of the pesky facts that they left out of their presentation of this story. But first, take a listen. ACLU of Washington sues Washington Department of Corrections for unconstitutionally transferring a transgender woman to a woman's prison. The ACLU of Washington filed a personal restraint petition on December 17th on behalf of Amber Kim, a transgender woman currently in the custody of the Washington Department of Corrections for the unconstitutional conditions of her confinement at Monroe Correctional Facility, a men's prison. For over 3 years after DOC made the determination that Ms. Kim needed to be housed in a women's facility, Ms. Kim served her sentence at the Washington Corrections Center for Women. However, in June 2024, Ms. Kim was transferred to Monroe, forcing her to live in a men's prison that does not align with her gender identity and that places her at imminent risk of harm. This is the first time in Washington's history that a transgender woman has been transferred from a women's prison to a men's facility. Ms. Kim has lived at the women's prison since 2021, and at the women's prison, Ms. Kim attended college with a 3.96 GPA, worked as a tutor, and participated in other programming. On March 14th, 2024, Ms. Kim and her cellmate, a cisgender woman, were caught having consensual sexual contact and were each found guilty of an infraction for violating rules around sexual contact. So, as the ACLU tells it in their very serious infinite wisdom, one day the evil people, those far-right radical Republicans in charge of the Washington State prison system, first off, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But these evil bigots and transphobes woke up one day and decided to punish this innocent, beautiful trans woman and remove her from the women's prison for no reason other than sheer spite. And she's just a valued member of this community who is just in prison because of the fact that she double murdered both her parents in cold blood.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
Which the ACLU left out of their statement, of course. This is not some non-violent offender. This is a convicted double murderer. I think that might be slightly relevant, but what do I know? I'm the crazy one, after all. As National Review reports, Kim was found guilty in 2008 of 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder in the stabbing of Kim's father, Richard Kim, and the bludgeoning and strangulation of Kim's mother, Terry Kim. The Spokesman Review reported Kim killed Kim's parents at their Mount Spokane home on December 5th, 2006, as they returned from work. After attempting to clean up the murder scene and hide Kim's parents' bodies in an outbuilding, Kim went shopping the next day, using Kim's father's debit card to withdraw $1,000 from Kim's parents' account. For Kim's crimes, Kim was sentenced to life in prison. Not the most ladylike behavior in my book, but hey, I guess the ACLU thinks it's irrelevant to this story that this person put in a women's prison, this person born biologically male, is a double murderer who strangled a woman, their own mother, to death. But where the ACLU takes it next is somehow even crazier. They are arguing that not allowing this biologically male prisoner, who is a convicted double murderer, in a women's prison is unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment and discrimination. Oh my gosh. These are the times we live in, folks. These are the times. This is fine. Everything is fine.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
The ACLU of Washington argues that the transfer violates Article 1, Section 14 of the Washington Constitution, which prohibits cruel punishment and is more protective than the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Transfer to a men's prison exposes Ms. Kim to an imminent danger of violence, sexual assault, and harassment. And putting a male murderer into a women's prison doesn't expose those women to danger? For the 3.5 years I was housed at the women's prison, I used my time there to learn, to grow, and to contribute positively to the women's prison. Being singled out for exceptional punishment and transferred to a men's prison over a single infraction not only harms me, but every other incarcerated transgender person, said Ms. Kim. The decision to transfer Ms. Kim to a men's prison is cruel and violates the Washington Constitution, said ACLU Washington staff attorney Adrian Levitt. Transphobia on the part of the DOC, Department of Corrections, hurts safety in state prisons and serves no legitimate purpose. You hear that, guys? Segregating prisons by biological sex is transphobia and serves no legitimate purpose. Are we in the upside down world? Am I the one who's hit the crack pipe too many times? Like, that would explain to me, at least, how we got here and how this is going, because sometimes I wake up, open the news, and I'm just like, am I still sleeping? Is this a nightmare? Am I still dreaming? Or no, this is just 2024, and this is LGBT activism. So one point I want to address here is this notion that all that this transgender inmate did was have consensual sexual activity. It's a little more complicated than that. In the National Review reporting, they explain that they don't actually know whether it was consensual or not, because it's very hard for them to determine that in prison settings, whether it's consensual or non-consensual. So there was sexual conduct and activity between this prisoner and another woman prisoner, but they don't know that it was consensual. That's just what the inmate says, but the actual people in charge don't know, and it's not allowed, so it is a violation of policies regardless. But to me, this story really, it shows how with the radical trans activism, there's just no nuance or no common sense, because I do acknowledge that a legitimate trans woman who transitioned long before becoming a convicted criminal, who maybe committed some sort of white collar crime, who's had bottom surgery, maybe they should be allowed to go into a women's prison. I don't know. I do acknowledge that they would be at a lot of danger in a men's prison, and I am sympathetic to that. But y'all, a double murderer who strangled a woman, their own mother, shouldn't be in a women's prison. How is that transphobia? How is that bigotry? Am I taking crazy pills? Or is that just not the most commonsensical thing that almost all Americans should be able to agree on? But apparently the ACLU and many democratic states where they transfer these people into women's prisons, this is a widespread phenomenon. It's not super common because there are only so many trans people and there are only so many trans people who are convicted of crimes, but it does happen in many blue states on many occasions. This is where the modern state of LGBT activism is. Like, this is the mainstream LGBT position, and it is totally devoid of nuance, totally devoid of any common sense, any respect for the need for sex segregated spaces in any capacity, and then insults us normal people who can see how insane this is and says that we're bigots. And I don't know. I find the whole thing absolutely insane. And of course, if we were to discuss any sort of nuanced solution, like maybe a third LGBT ward, something Blair White has suggested as some sort of compromise, because I do agree putting trans women into a men's prison sets them up for harm, and I don't want that either, they would say that's discrimination and that's bigotry. Not even that would be good enough for these hardcore activists. So I find them so unreasonable. I have no sympathy for this stuff. And this is the kind of story and the kind of lunacy that is dragging down the LGBT community, that is turning back the clock, that is leading to backlash. This is why people hate us increasingly and don't support the LGBT community. It's because of this insane crap. It's not because of your gay neighbor down the street who wants to get married and adopt a kid. That isn't it. There are some people out there who are actually just genuinely bigoted and are bothered by that, but that is not the majority of people. The majority of people who are starting to backslide on support for this community, it's because of the insanity, and it needs to stop. Because honestly, what does this have to do with me as a gay man? Why am I somehow lumped into this craziness? That's what I don't understand. And what I will not accept. This, not in my name, babe. I got nothing to do with that. You arguing that putting male murderers in women's prisons is human rights. I not me. Couldn't be me supporting that. Don't do that in my name. If you want to call that, honestly, don't even do that in trans people's names, because I think a lot of trans people would say that's crazy. However, if you want to say, oh, that's your trans movement, get the G out of there. Keep that name out of your mouth if you're going to do that in my name, please. I mean, oh my gosh. Guys, I think you can tell this story has me a little fired up. I do want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. I know a lot of you watch this all the time but aren't subscribed. Come on, maybe an early Christmas present for me. You can go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Do hit that like button. Do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say, and I pick some to respond to in every episode.